Welcome to Crime in Court. This is day 5 of the testimony of the trial of Richard Allen in Indiana versus Richard Allen. And we have a lot to get through. There was a lot that happened on the fifth day, and let's just dive right into it. So I am going to, where am I? I'm going to shrink myself. And here we go. All right, so as I've been doing for these daily recaps, I'm going through, I wanted to do days 5 and 6, double them up and get us all caught up, but there was just way too much that happened on the fifth day of trial. So I'm going to go over day 5 and yeah, there's a lot. So let's just dive in. There's motions and all sorts of updates. So let's begin with Kyla Russell, who is with Wish News 8. So she says the doctor who performed the autopsies on Abby and Libby's bodies testified, Dr. Roland Kaur. The autopsies happened, sorry, this is the beginning. Yeah, I was just making sure this is the first part of day 5. So Dr. Roland Kaur. The autopsies happened on February 15th, so the day after the girls were found. Kaur explained that wounds uh, Court explained what wounds each girl had. Abby had one incision on her neck, Libby had multiple. They did not have blatant defensive wounds or overt trauma that is SA related. The doctor said Abby likely died in about 5 to 10 minutes and Libby in about 5. That all could have been impacted by several factors, though. Hold on, my dog's noisy. All right, God, his nails. So noisy on the floor. Sorry. All right. So Court explained the wounds that everybody had. They said Libby probably bled out in 5 to 10 minutes, and Libby in 5 minutes. I'm assuming is how they died. Um, so that all could have been impacted by several factors. He estimates that they died about 41 hours before their autopsy. There was a contentious back and forth, between Core and the defense, as the doctor had said in his original report that the girls were wounded with a serrated edge. He said today, even though he is not certain, the girls could have been wounded with a box cutter. And remember, Richard Allen made some kind of odd confession about doing this crime with the box cutter because he carried a box cutter at CVS, but again, anytime that he made any of these supposed confessions, he was under severe mental distress, mental health distress. He was having episodes of severe psychosis, we will say. And I don't believe anything that he said necessarily to be true because I don't even think he knew where he was at the time. So, all right, so box cutter. That is important because this doctor is trying to tie that to that confession, but I don't think that it was even originally in his report. He said serrated knife or serrated edge, and now he's saying it could be a box cutter. The defense says he changed his story without telling them. So that's the beginning of day 5. We also heard from Sarah Carbow. She saw the bridge guy. She's the one that drove by, so she gave the description for um the first sketch that went out. And she saw him while she was driving by on the bridge. I'll show you a map in a little bit. We'll show you, I think, where they were kind of where she passed him. So she saw him around 4 p.m., she says, covered in mud and blood, this bridge guy on the 13th. She headed back in the afternoon. Oh, this person was headed back, the Kyla Russell said she was going back into the afternoon session. We'll have more in Carbow and other testimony late this afternoon. Sorry, I haven't even read through all of these myself because it's been a very, very busy week and I've been trying just to catch up on everything. This case, it's so difficult without actually being able to watch it. You have to look for several sources, and it's been a whirlwind. All right, so, and I'm trying to do Karen Reed at the same time, and there's been a bunch of updates like daily in that case too. So it's just, yeah, no excuses. Heather, get it done. All right, so updates from the afternoon of day 5. The state called Christopher Cecil, commander of the Indiana Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. He spearheaded 2 reports on the activity of Libby German's cell phone. The phone was being used by both girls. We saw a breakdown of all the apps that not only had Libby's logins, but Abby's as well. We know they were using the same phone. Libby had a phone, Abby didn't have a phone. They were best friends, they did everything together. Libby gave Abby access to Libby's phone. She allowed her own thumbprint access. This was back then when that's how you accessed your phones, with your thumb. And also, she had her own logins, apparently. So, yeah. The phone was last locked around 2:07 p.m. I'm sorry, last unlocked. Unlocked. So Libby potentially could have been the one that had unlocked it. And then the bridge guy video is taken. So it's still supposedly in her possession, because the video that they saw, it was Libby taking the video, and her and Abby were talking, and they realized that the path ended and they could go down there, or they were questioning should we go down there, whatever the words were. And we found out that the bridge guy is actually like this size on the screen, and he's really tiny and you could barely see him. And we also found out that they used AI software to create that interloop thing that they had. It was like the how it like loops that like it's like he's walking, but it's like the same step over and over again. So they used AI to generate that. So basically, not admissible in court, but yet they admitted it. Not even real, because it's AI, and you can't even mm, it fills in the blanks of what it doesn't. Sorry, I'm trying to move my cord here. It fills in the blanks of what um aren't on the image itself, so it'll fill it in artificially, meaning that the face that we see might not even be the real face of the guy, which is blurry anyway, so it's hard to see. So, all right, back to this. So the bridge guy video was taken at 2:13. At 2:14 p.m., someone tries to unlock the phone with their fingerprint, but is unsuccessful. That's interesting. Okay, so 2:32 p.m. is the last known movement of the phone. The phone stayed on and received messages late into the night, at least until about 10:30 p.m., which is odd. So the phone just was in the place where it was found under Libby or Abby. It was under, okay, so Abby's laying on the ground, and there was a shoe under Abby, and under the shoe there was the phone. So the phone, shoe, Abby. So that's how it was found. And was it there since 2:30 p.m.? I seriously doubt it. There were people searching that area all night until like 2 in the morning, or midnight, something. They were out there searching a long time. I can't remember what time it was exactly. But yeah. So I have a feeling that it wasn't there at that time. But the phone stays on and received messages late into the night, at least until about 10:30 p.m. Cecil says there's no indication that the phone has turned off, but that it didn't receive notifications again until 4:33 a.m. So from what? It says it's still receiving messages until 10:30 p.m., and then from 10:30 till 4:30 a.m. there's nothing. That just doesn't make sense. That's when the 20 SMS messages come through, almost as if it's like, oh, someone turned on the phone and bing, 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 all the messages start to pop up. So, did someone put it on airplane mode? Was it off and then they turned it on? Like, what happened? It's very odd. When asked why there's a gap, this expert says, I don't know. He says, I don't know. Next update from Kyla Russell says, when asked if any of Richard Allen's 23 electronic devices seized in November 2022 connected him to Abby and Libby, a prosecution's witness said no. He wasn't connected with them on social media or anything. No connection via the mobile data. Chris Cecil is the commander of the Indiana Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. He said nothing linked Allen other than having searched info about the case. So Allen, had been there that day, having been there that day, and knowing that something happened that day, knowing that you could maybe give a clue or a hint to the police that might help them find this person. I bet it was hard for him to even come forward, but it probably was like, well, it's the right thing to do. You don't even think you're going to be locked up because somehow, some way, they pick your name out of a hat 7 years later after you've already been cleared, as we're going to learn in day 6, I believe. Um, no spoilers, sorry. But yeah, so that's interesting, right? The prosecution pointed out that Allen had a different phone number in 2017 and not included in the C's, or a different phone. So whether that's true or not, I don't know, but they didn't contest it. So regardless, his accounts, all that would still be the same. Like he could have, if he was talking online to girls or, underage people, there would be some kind of connection there. How would he have even gotten to know them? All right, so update as this is the last update of the day for her. She says, as I mentioned earlier, Sarah Carbow also testified today in the Delphi double homicide trial. Here are a few major notes. Sarah said she lives near the Monon High Bridge Trail and walked her dogs there every day. On February 13th, she was driving and saw me. So she wasn't walking the trails that day. She was actually driving. So that's also weird if she's like bringing up the fact that, yeah, I walk those trails every day. But that day I was just driving by and I saw this guy covered in mud and blood. It's kind of convenient. There's some problems with Sarah's testimony here. So she said, covered in mud and blood, this guy she saw walking alongside the road. She described the blood as fresh splatters, like she could tell that. But okay. She said later that day she got an Amber Alert and learned Abby Williams and Libby German were missing. Wish TV has previously reported there was not an Amber Alert sent out about the girls that night, though there was a general alert that circulated. So isn't that odd that there was no Amber Alert when two minor girls out get lost, don't come back when they're supposed to? You would think that that's exactly what that Amber Alert is for, but wasn't issued. So she said she said she recognized the photo of Bridgeman later shared through Bridgeman, it's Bridge Guy. Bridge Guy later shared through news outlets, but that she waited 3 weeks to come forward to police because she was scared. She waited 3 weeks. She later saw a police officer asking for tips and said it was fate and she needed to report it when she'd seen it, or what she'd seen, but she didn't report it. So how can you say it's fate if you were afraid to report it? That's a weird way to phrase it, right? Oh, it was just fate that I just happened to stumble along this big, high profile case, and now I'm a witness in it. Just fate. I'm not saying that's what happened, but potentially. The defense questioned her for some time about alleged discrepancies in her descriptions over the years in police interviews. She also claimed a section of her 2017 police interview was missing, which is weird how she wouldn't even know that in the first place. How do you know your police interview is missing? But she said, so when she was grilled on the whole, why did you say muddy and bloody? Why didn't you say that in your first report before it was like wet and muddy or something? And now it changed to muddy and bloody. And why, after multiple iterations of this story, has it changed? And um, she said that she did tell the police early on. They just lost it. It was in that portion of her videos that were missing. So is she following this case and knowing that the police lost all of these interviews with witnesses in this case? Because they lost a ton. I think it's like over 70 hours worth of investigations that they lost and never tried to recreate or document in any way. And apparently her interview with the Muddy and Bloody was one of them. So, anyways, that's her story, Sarah Carbow. Here is, and that was from Kyla Russell of Wish TV. Let's move on to the Delphi homicides trial, day 5 highlights from Max Lewis of Fox 59 and CBS Indy anchor and reporter. So, first up to stand was Sarah Carbow. So this is, I guess we went in out of order. Sorry, before Delphi. First up to the stand was Sarah Carbow. She saw a man walking down the road near the trails the day the girls went missing. She recognized the bridge guy picture on the news as the man she saw that day. She described him as muddy and bloody. Harbaugh became combative during cross examination. Defense pointed to transcripts of her first two interviews with police. Neither had the word bloody in them. So, two police interviews and written transcripts. So, even if they got the video or lost the video, that's not an excuse. She insisted that she said bloody, but said that the video of her interview went missing. Defense pounced on that. Baldwin says, you said your description was always the same, but that's not true, is it? She responds, I guess not. She then told the court she wanted nothing to do with this case. During recross, Baldwin, but it was fate that she stumbled upon the guy, right? During recross, Baldwin asks about inconsistencies. He says, were, we were doing this again, she said. Oh, he asked about inconsistencies, and her response was, we're doing this again? That's a really bad answer from a witness. Next was forensic pathologist Dr. Roland Kaur, who performed autopsies. He found no signs of traumatic SA related injuries to either girl and also found no defensive wounds. So, were they drugged? Were they tied up? Were there ligature marks anywhere on their hands and feet? Like they didn't put up a fight? Or were they held down? Like, I have so many questions as to why there's no defensive wounds, why the wounds are the way they are. The autopsy photos were shown to the jury. Libby had 3 large slashes to her neck. Abby only had one. Dr. Kaur initially said he believed Libby's wounds were caused by a serrated knife, but said today that it may have been a box cutter. So he's changing his theory. Dr. Kaur testified that he could not say for sure what type of weapon was used. He could also not testify to how many weapons were used. So he says it could have been a box cutter, but then he takes it back and says, well, I don't really know. I can't tell you what weapon was used. So then why, you know that the prosecution was like, make sure you throw that word box cutter in there because that's what we have in his confession. So make sure that you say that. He also could not provide a time of death for the girls. He did say it probably would have taken Abby 5 to 10 minutes after the attack. Dr. Cole and Libby likely died faster, Dr. Cole said that Libby likely died faster due to the fact that her carotid artery was hit. Last up was Sergeant Christopher Cecil, who is a digital forensic examiner in Indiana State Police. He analyzed data pulled from Libby's cell phone in 2019. He was able to get data from the health app on movement associated with the phone. The last movement that day was at 2:32 p.m. So we got that. They're putting the timeline out there now. So right before the phone logged an elevation change at about 20 feet, but couldn't say if it was up or down. So the phone right before the phone is, right before the phone stops moving for the last time, it's logged as some kind of an elevation. So if they were going down a path, that makes sense. But they say they can't tell if it was going up or down. So they could have been going up, but most likely, if they were up on the Monon High Bridge walking and it was done right after that video at 2:13, they probably were heading down. There was no movement logged on the phone after 2:32. In the 2019 report, Cecil said the last data or cell text that the phone received was at 10:32 p.m. He concluded at the time that the phone likely died after that, but he now believes that's no longer the case because he processed the data this last summer and discovered that Libby's phone received 15 messages at 4:33 a.m. on February 14th. Why the lull in any messages and then you just get 15 messages all at once at 4:33? That's unlikely that 15 people just said, "Oh, it's 4:33. I'm going to text Libby right now." No, something happened where it connected to service again, and she got 15 messages. So I think they're not being genuine about the movements and the last time. I don't know. There's just something really fishy here. Cecil could not offer an explanation for why the phone didn't receive any messages or calls from 10:32 p.m. to 4:33 a.m. We also learned that Cecil was able to find all the images that Libby posted on Snapchat that day, with the exception of the one below. Could not explain why. This image, and I swear to God, so I went on this like deep dive. There's a channel called True Crime Design on YouTube. If you haven't checked them out, they do a lot of deep dives on the Delphi case. I got into her channel like way long ago when I first started like really digging into this case, and she had some theory in one of her videos. I can't remember which one now because it was so long ago, but she said that this photo was very likely a photoshopped image of a picture of the bridge, it's a picture taken from the bridge and a picture of Abby, but it's Abby from another picture of hers where she's actually like playing baseball or something. She's like got a ball in her hand and she's like tossing it or whatever. And they totally photoshopped that image of Abby into this background because and that was her theory, and I was like, huh, like that, I'm looking at it and I was looking all the reasons why she believed that this was photoshopped, and I was like, okay, I totally can see it because There was something wrong, when we saw the bridge guy video, we just knew something was wrong with it. Now we know it's that interlopation or whatever they call it, where it just loops over and over again, and it was AI generated. Now, I believe that this photo was also photoshopped and released to the public to say, here's a photo of Abby to recognize her or to whatever the theory, whatever the storyline that law enforcement is giving us is BS. Absolutely BS, because this photo wasn't on Libby's phone. And this is a photo that law enforcement released along with the bridge guy video and the voice, the down the hill voice, all of that. They released this together, almost as if like, look, they were on their last walk. And here's a picture of Abby taken on Libby's phone, but it's not on Libby's phone. Yeah, if you do get a chance, go check out True Crime Design. They have excellent videos on this case that do a lot of deep dives and really make you think. So as soon as I read this from this guy saying, they couldn't explain why this particular image was not on Libby's phone, it was posted on Snapchat that day, whatever. Okay, so we learned from Cecil that he was able to find all the images that Libby posted on Snapchat that day, with the exception of this particular one below. So something about that photo is very, very odd. And True Crime Design, I give her a lot of credit for thinking that one, or whoever she got it from. Good sleuths online. It's amazing what people can come up with. All right, so continuing on with Max Lewis's rendition or updates from day 5. When defense asked if it was possible that someone else posted it from another device, Cecil said yes. So someone else, maybe a relative of Libby or Abby, could have posted it. We know now that there's a piece of hair that could have potentially been a family member's in Abby's hand. There was a long hair with a root. Long hair. Richard Allen does not have long hair, and it was never identified or tested. So could that's another angle that True Crime Design went down, and I'm not going to go down that road yet. But is it possible that family members were involved in this, and it is another ritualistic KILLing in this country for these Satan worshiping white superiority type people? For some, I mean, I don't know. There's always a reason. There's a sacrifice needed for wealth or for, in this religion, this Norse religion that they believe is related somehow to this crime. So, anyways, um, where was I? All right, so sorry. Um, yeah, so just that image and the whole, is family maybe potentially involved in this? Could Kelsey, is she a little suspicious? True Crime Design thinks so. So definitely go check out her videos. I'm gonna go do a deep dive again into Kelsey because and the family, the Patties. So some interesting stuff going on in that family. Anyways, all right. So when defense asked if it was possible that somebody else posted this mysterious video that was on Snapchat but not on Libby's phone, which could be like an alibi, showing an alibi or something if a family member's involved or someone they know is involved and post this on behalf of Libby on Snapchat. I don't know. I don't know the details, but I know it's fishy. Defense then asked if ISP sent the extracted data to the FBI when they requested it. Cecil said he did not respond. Cecil said he did not respond. Defense asked if ISP sent the extracted data to the FBI, and the FBI didn't respond. That question confuses me. Defense then revealed that ISP seized 23 devices from Richard Allen. ISP couldn't, 23 devices? ISP couldn't find anything on those devices that connected Allen to Abby, Libby, or the crimes. Hold on. All right, sorry. Um, where was I? Defense revealed they seized 23 items. Libby couldn't find, oh, there was no connection. Sorry, I lost where I was. There was no connection from Abby and Libby and Richard Allen or the crimes. So, like, nothing connecting them with any of his electronic devices. However, Allen's phone he had in 2017 was not among those devices. Jury asked 16 questions about phone data. You can still, if it's saved on your cloud or whatever, it could still transfer over to a new phone sometimes. So, not like text or anything like that, but some of your data can. So let's move on to Dave Bangert's recap of day 5, the Delphi homicide trial, autopsy photos, another bridge guy witness. So here's his recap of the day. Forensic pathologist rethink style of weapon used to take Abby and Libby's life. Resident tells about seeing bridge guy, gets into it with defense over details, new info from Libby's phone, and the return of Odin. Yes, that's right. The defense, I read it at the end of day 4, they filed a motion to be able to use Odinism again. They want to revisit that because they believe that the door is opened. So they filed that like the morning, I think, of day 5 or at the end of day 4. So we read through that already. So we knew that was coming. All right, so the forensic pathologist who performed the autopsy for Delphi eighth graders Abby Williams and Libby German the day after they were found dead in the woods near the Monon High Bridge Trail in February 2017 backtracked on the stand Wednesday, testifying that he's rethought whether marks on one of the cut rounds was made by a serrated, oh, one of the cut wounds, sorry, was made by a serrated blade as he initially thought. The revelation, one that Richard Allen's defense team was left with reeling, a bit came the morning session of day 5. A 52-year-old man, Richard Allen, accused in the crimes. Here we see some of the highlights from the trial played out in and outside of the courtroom. Photos and results from the autopsy as Dr. Roland Core, a family Vigo County coroner who led the autopsies on February 15th, detailed graphic photos of the fatal wounds of the girls' necks on large screen TV set up in Carroll Circuit Court. He pointed to a series of patterned markings left on Libby's wounds. Blah, blah, blah. I'm getting so tongue-tied. I'm sorry. Core said that the more he looked at it at the trial against 52-year-old man Richard Allen, the less he was convinced a weapon with a serrated edge was used, but something related to the blade or handle. Core said it wasn't a classic serrated, but serrated like. Core said his evolving thoughts were inspired by his own garage workshop, saying one candidate might be a box cutter designed with parallel lines to make a gripping surface for the thumb. That was a surprise to Allen's defense team. During opening arguments last week, Andrew Baldwin had told jurors that the killer had two blades in the homicide, one serrated and the other one not, while the state would contend that Allen used a box cutter. So they're saying one's serrated, one's not, and implying that this box cutter was potentially used. Brad Rosie, another of Allen's attorneys, asked Core whether he had given a deposition to the defense team in February 2024, agreeing with an initial report about wounds coming from serrated and non serrated blades. Core said he had. Rosie asked him whether he planned to update his report. He says, "Do you think it would have been good to contact the defense that you were going to come in here and change your mind?" Rosie asked. During his testimony, Kaur said Abby's carotid arteries were partially cut on the left side of the neck. He said she died of that single wound. Kaur testified that Libby's jugular veins were completely cut. Cuts also sliced carotid arteries on the left side. Kaur showed that Libby had 3 gaping wounds, but he said she might have been cut 4 or 5 times, as if the perpetrator made second passes on 1 or 2 of the spots on her neck. While pictures of the wounds were shown on a large screen TV in the courtroom, families wiped eyes and sat stoically. A few jurors looked flushed and had to look down occasionally. Allen sat at the defense table looking at the pictures along with everyone else. Kaur said he didn't determine a time of death other than between the time the girls were dropped off at a trailhead the afternoon of the 13th and when they were found the following afternoon east of Monon High Bridge Trail. Horace said, given the wounds, the girls would have died within 5 to 10 minutes after being cut. Horace said that from the autopsies, he wasn't able to tell from the wounds whether the perpetrator was left-handed or right-handed. Kaur testified that R kits or SA kits were administered for Abby and Libby. Those did not show signs of SA. So, at least that we know of, they were not traumatized in that way. Kaur also said that he did not see signs of trauma that would have come from SA. Kaur testified there were no signs of defensive wounds, so that makes me wonder how they were not moving or they weren't biting. Were they drugged? Was there toxicology done? Kaur also testified that Abby had a faint line in her face under her nose as it had been covered by a cloth or a tape, as if it had. So, like somebody pulled tape or something. Though she had, though he said there was not residue from adhesive that would be present with tape. So then why does she have a line under her face? James Luttrell, part of the prosecution team, asked Kaur that given his examination of wounds, what was the minimum number of blades possible in the homicides? He said a minimum number is 1. Okay, guy. Another witness to the bridge guy testifies. Sarah Carbow, a lifelong Delphi resident, testified Wednesday that she'd driven on County Road 300. So again, this is County Road 300, this in the image here on the screen. And Sarah Carbow was driving on that road north past the Mears entrance. So I'm assuming that way is north. So she's going just past the Mears entrance, which is right here, and she sees Bridge Guy, apparently, past the Mears entrance on the Monon High Bridge several times on Friday. Wait, she drove by? She had driven by several times that day. She said she walked her dogs on the trail almost daily, but liked to go when the small parking lot at the trailhead was empty. Carbo said it was full that afternoon, including a group of people gathered who looked stressed out. On Tuesday, Steve Mullen, former Delphi police chief, testified that security cameras at the nearby Hoosier Harvest store showed Carbow's car driving east on Country Road 300 North at 3:56 p.m. So here's the Hoosier Harvest store, and so she drove past that at 3:56 and then past the Mears entrance and sees this bridge guy, supposedly. On Tuesday, Steve Mullen, former Delphi police chief, testified that security cameras at the store, sorry, I read that, was at 3:56. Carbow testified Wednesday that she continued on. She saw a man walking west on County Road 300 North. She testified that he had his hands in his pocket, looking down and shoulders hunched, almost like this, maybe. She She said that he was wearing layers of clothes on an unseasonably warm day that didn't seem to require them. So he was wearing more clothes than necessary, apparently, which I guess you could say about this guy. It was unseasonably warm, meaning it was like 50 in February, which is really warm for this area. Well, not I'm not in Delphi, but Chicago, Midwest. It's 50's a decent day in February. All right, so his posture, she said, curled into itself. Carbout, that what does that mean? He curled into himself? Like I get that where like, you got like a hunched back, but what does it mean to curl into yourself? Carbout testified that the man was covered in mud and blood as if he'd just fallen down a cliff along the trails. I looked at him, Carbaugh said, but he didn't make eye contact with me. Carbaugh said she later saw images of a potential suspect captured in video on Libby German's phone and recognized him as the man that she'd seen on the 13th. She said it took her 3 weeks to report what she saw because she was anxious about it. She eventually met several times with investigators in 2017 and in the years that followed to tell about what she saw. It didn't come up Wednesday, but during the pretrial hearing last week in Allen County, her name came up in connection with witness statements that helped with police composite sketches used to drum up tips during the investigation. Baldwin, Allen's attorney, challenged her certainty about her description of what she saw on the 13th. Baldwin pointed to transcripts of her initial interviews with police. She mentioned mud 11 and 13 times and blood no times. No times. I'm going to repeat that. No times did she mention blood. Carbaugh said she believed she might have mumbled the word blood the first time. The second time, she said about an hour of her interview was missing. Missing or erased investigation interviews have been a bone of contention for Allen's team through pretrial hearings. This is true. All of the people who are potential third party suspects, their investigation tapes have been taped over. It's very concerning. And how does she know? I want to say, how does she know that that particular point in the tape where she was talking about blood just happened to be missing? How does she know that the tape is missing? It's very odd. We have to take your word for that, Baldwin asked. That video is missing, and that's not on me, she said of her June 2017 interview with police. I understand you're doing your job. You're doing a good job. My description is always going to be the same. It's mud and blood. Baldwin noted that a later interview had Carbow mentioning blood but no longer talking about mud. He also pressed her on her bits of descriptions she gave about the man she said she saw. At one point, as Baldwin drilled deeper into differences in her descriptions, Carbow asked him, "Are we doing this again?" Baldwin paused and lowered his glasses and said, "Yes, we are." He said she'd initially described the man wearing a tan coat when the bridge guy was in a dark blue coat. He had trans or she he said that transcripts show that Carbow told police the man had effeminate eyes. "Are you romanticizing this?" Carbow said. "I can't tell you how many freckles he had or if he had effeminate eyes or any of that." What the heck? How did she see effeminate eyes from driving down the street, passing him at 30 miles an hour, and asking, "Are you romanticizing this?" What? You're the one that said it. Carba was the fourth witness over 2 days called to testify about seeing a man they say matched the image of the bridge guy. Each time, Allen's defense team tried to poke holes in descriptions of a muscular, tall, youthful man. Allen, who would have been in his mid 40s in 2017, stands 5'4". So he's fully developed height wise. He's not getting any taller. In fact, we start shrinking at a certain age. So, um, He's 5'4", and everyone was saying that the guy, this bridge guy, was taller, more like 5'10", I believe. So the latest extraction from Libby's phone, details from another analysis of Libby German's cell phone found February 14th under the body of Abby Williams, came in the afternoon via testimony from ISP First Sergeant Chris Cecil. This account is from notes from Media Pool reports. The iPhone 6S had been examined several times since 2017, each time with progressively more advanced software. Cecil testified that the phone last logged movement was 2:32:39 on February 13th. His report included a timeline of the phone's actions leading up to that. So at 1:41, a picture was posted to Snapchat. 1:43, another picture posted. 2:05, another picture posted to Snapchat of the Monon High Bridge, so of the location where they're at. 2:07, the last time the phone is unlocked, presumably by either Libby or Abby. We don't know. They didn't tell us. So 2:13, video lasting, this is the bridge guy video that shows up on her phone, the 43-second video. At 2:14, someone tries to unlock the phone, which I find just really chilling. Someone tries to unlock the phone at 2:15, but it was unsuccessful. Last movement of the phone. Maybe they dropped the phone as they were being abducted, if that's possible, and then that's why the phone didn't move, but then why they must the perpetrators then grabbed the phone and took it to the spot. See, I'm just we're missing some pieces of information and I can't get from A to C until I have B, and it's driving me crazy because I feel like we're onto something and we're gonna figure it out. All right, so 2:32 then was the last movement of the phone. 4:06 p.m. She gets an SMS message from Becky Patty, who is Libby's grandmother, saying, "You need to call me now," with 3 exclamation points. At 10:32, the last signal from the phone. Cecil testified the phone records had a gap until 4:33 a.m., which it received then 15 to 20 messages all at once. Why was that? Based on information I have, I don't know, Cecil testified. So there's an explanation for it somewhere, and law enforcement didn't try to figure that out. He said the phone had no activity after 4:34 a.m. Defense asks again to present third-party Odin theory, and we went into that. So I'm going to stop here because we've already, well, I'm going to skip over that because we already went over the Odinism thing. Uh, Next, the defense witness blocked on bullet examination. So new orders came in from Judge Gall, and they will not be able to bring their expert William Tobin. So it's just the dumbest reason. So Allen's defense team will not be allowed to call William Tobin, a forensic metallurgist, lined up with um, lined up to testify about the accuracy and reliability of the state's examination of a bullet found near the girls' bodies. In a Wednesday ruling, Judge Fran Gull agreed with the prosecutor who argued that Tobin isn't qualified as an expert in the field of firearms examination. He's he is an expert, however, in metallurgy and how metals and things react to different pressures and whatnot. So he would be a good analyst, I would think. And just because he's not a technically firearms examiner, it's a tool that he's using, but she doesn't want to allow it. So whatever, it's the dumbest reason. So he'd be opining, James Luttrell, part of the prosecution team, said during pretrial arguments on the motion last week in Allen County. So in the court documents, investigators pointed to an unspent .40 caliber bullet that they say ballistic testing shows traces back to Richard Allen's Sig Sauer pistol. and that they found during the search of his home in October of 2022, after officers circled back to talk with Allen more than 5 years after the crime. So, 5 years after the crime, this guy gave a tip early on in the investigation, and you're going 5 years back to grab some random person's name and to arrest them. Wild to me. And I really feel like he was framed. This is a frame job from the minute they said Richard Allen. So Brad Rosie, one of Allen's attorneys, had argued that Tobin was well qualified and was included to challenge what he called junk science that tool markings on a that saw tool markings on an unspent bullet and leaped to trying Allen to the homicides. In her ruling, Gull wrote that is not a firearms expert, has not had training in firearms identification, and has never conducted a firearms examination. She also wrote that Tobin has not examined the evidence introduced in the trial this week. So what? So that's why he can't testify, because he didn't review the stuff from this week. So let him review it. Let him look at it. What does he need to review? Let's make this happen, Judge Gull. Why is that such an issue? Also, she denied the motion from Andrea Burkhart. Yeah, she denied that outright too. She did allow some exhibits to be seen by a bunch of media, though. Um, they were able to go in and look at some things. Um, I'm trying to see, what did they look at? So loads of photos, documents, and more presented during the 3 days of hearings. So they went back and looked at all that evidence, the 60 confessions, blah, blah, blah. All right, so there was a lot that happened in day 5. I still have some filings that I need to go over with you, but I think I'm going to maybe even wait on this until next time. Definitely the jury instructions, I'm going to wait, and we'll wait on that. But up first, before we go, this will be the last thing we read, and then I'll save the other two for our next video for day 6. But because I got to get going, I got groceries ready. So motion to quash subpoena. This is from the former prosecuting attorney. So he was the former Nick McClelland before Nick McClelland was in the position he's in. So this is the former prosecuting attorney that was in the way beginning of the investigation with this, and the defense wants to call him to the stand. So this is interesting. Comes now Robert Ives, former prosecuting attorney by counsel Thomas J. O'Brien. So speaking of that, comes now Thomas J. O'Brien and enters a limited appearance on behalf of Robert Ives. So this guy, Thomas J. O'Brien, is Robert Ives' attorney. He had to get some representation for this, he felt. So, pursuant to Trial Rule 45 of the Indiana Rules of Trial Procedure, and respectfully request the court to quash a subpoena to testify in the above entitled cause. In support of said motion, counsel states as follows. Robert Ives received a subpoena from the defense on October 22, 2024. The subpoena requested his testimony at the jury trial in the above entitled cause. On October 28th, Richard M. Allen was charged in this cause number 4 with four counts of homicide, which I don't get because there's 2 individuals. So how do you get 4 counts? Robert Ives' last day of being the prosecuting attorney for Carroll County was December 31st, 2017. Any information that Robert Ives had would have had would clearly be work product, which is something not discoverable, nor is Robert Ives able to testify regarding any work product. So he's trying to hide behind that. Robert Ives is not a fact witness. That should be required to prove an undue hardship or an inability to obtain the information from another source. Any information Robert Ives has would be purely speculative, irrelevant, and inadmissible in this proceeding. I don't think so, but okay. Robert Ives is requesting that the court quash the subpoena for him to testify in the above entitled cause, or at a minimum, require the defense to clearly demonstrate the relevancy of Robert Ives' testimony, the inability to obtain the information from another source, and to demonstrate the work order protection that Robert Ives has. Therefore, they want to, quash the subpoena. I thought I had a response to that, but I can't. No. Oh, yes. Limited appearance. I thought I did. It's like, where is it? It wasn't open. Sorry, hold on. We have some kind of. No, that's limited appearance from Thomas J. O'Brien. We just had that. All right, so no, we don't have any answer regarding the subpoena, but knowing Judge Gull, I think she's going to quash it and say, no, that's okay. You don't have to testify in this case. She refused to let certain individual or to make certain individuals answer questions from the deposition that they certified. She has completely gone off the rails. She is so biased, so blatantly evil in her rulings where, she's not allowing them to talk about onanism. She's not allowing them to talk about the tool markings on the bullet casing. She's not allowing them to bring up any of the third party culprits that clearly have more of a interest in this than Richard Allen, more of a connection. It's just insane. I can't believe that the Indiana Supreme Court's let her remain on because she is a stain on the justice system, in my opinion. But I have a feeling she's just going to quash it. Yeah, no big deal. Do whatever the prosecution wants and get this guy put away forever because she knows it's harder to overturn, it's harder to appeal once you have a conviction, and he's going to sit and rot in jail for a while for until he can go through all of his appeals until anything kind of works. I mean, there's a lot of things here to appeal. I'm not saying that there's not, but it's still justice system takes time, and even with all the things that they could appeal right now, I mean, they still have to wait for a conviction before they can. So it's so stupid. Our justice system is just so blatantly biased and corrupt. On that note, I'm going to let you guys go. Think about that happy little note. Um, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you. Let me know what you think about Judge Gull and being such a tyrant in this case, and if you think Richard Allen has a shot of getting out of this. I mean, it seems so far no connection to Richard Allen, but clearly the deck is stacked in the prosecution's favor always. So I'm still just worried that, even if the jury's smart and can see some of these glaring mistakes and inconsistencies, I still think that, people tend to convict more often than not, unfortunately, in this country. And jail's not always the answer. So, all right. Well, I will leave you on that different note to get you thinking. All right. So, be here next time for day 6 of trial testimony of the trial of Richard Allen in Indiana versus Richard Allen. Take care. Bye, guys.